The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
Madam Speaker, Article 2, Section 3 of the United States Constitution declares that the President shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. However, President Obama has failed on many occasions to enforce acts of Congress that he disagrees with for policy reasons, and has stretched his regulatory authority to put in place policies that Congress has refused to enact. Although President Obama is not the first president to stretch his powers beyond their constitutional limits, executive overreach has accelerated at an alarming rate under his administration. To help prevent executive overreach and require greater disclosure when it occurs, Representative DeSantis introduced H.R. 3973, the Faithful Execution of the Law Act. I want to thank Representative DeSantis for introducing this common sense legislation to ensure that there is greater transparency and disclosure regarding the executive branch's enforcement of federal law. The Justice Department is currently required by law to report to Congress whenever it decides to adopt a policy to refrain from enforcing federal law on the grounds that the law in question is unconstitutional. The Faithful Execution of the Law Act strengthens this provision by requiring the Attorney General to report to Congress whenever a federal official establishes or implements a formal or informal policy to refrain from enforcing a federal law, and the reason for the non-enforcement, regardless of whether it is being done on constitutional or policy grounds. As Professor Jonathan Turley observed regarding this legislation in testimony before the Judiciary Committee, quote, "It is hard to see the argument against such disclosures. Too often Congress has only been informed of major changes by leaks to the media," end quote. Congress should not have to rely on media leaks and other unofficial sources to find out that the executive branch has decided not to enforce federal laws. Congress cannot possibly know the extent of executive branch non-enforcement of the laws without mandatory disclosure of all non-enforcement policies by the person who should be fully aware of such policies, namely the Attorney General, the nation's chief law enforcement officer. Passage of H.R. 3973 is essential if Congress is going to play an active role in overseeing that the separation of powers between the branches is maintained and that the President is faithfully executing the laws. I thank the gentleman from Arizona, the chairman of the subcommittee, for yielding me this time, and I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. And yield back.
The gentleman from